So on the Chevy Traverse, after the preliminary data analysis, we do indeed see that the computer is telling the truth and that intake signal on bank 2 is retarded about 10 degrees. It doesn't like that. It's within the threshold of setting, the code setting criteria. So there is a problem. Now, the question of the day is, what is the problem? We have new chains, new phasers, even new cam sensors. The owner said you put those in. It's still setting that code. So what are the possibilities? Now remember, the problem is confined just to that one camshaft, the intake on bank 2. So it could either be, could the chain have jumped a tooth? Probably not, because initially it ran fine with no codes. Could we have a defective part like a bad phaser? Or, again, unlikely, could the reluctor wheel on the end of the camshaft somehow slipped or turned? It's a pressed on. Well, actually, no, it's not pressed on. The reluctor wheel here is part of the VVT sprocket. So, I don't see that being a problem. So basically, let's count the teeth here. There are 40 teeth on this camshaft sprocket, and I looked up the crank and the intermediate sprockets too. So this layout is kind of a special design with, there's a crank, then we have one chain going to, these are idlers, and then from each idler we have chains going to the banks, and this is the one that we're worried about. So considering that the problem is only confined to this one camshaft, we can say this chain is fine, it's timed correctly. This chain is also fine, it's timed correctly to the idler. We're looking at potentially a phaser problem. Now these phasers, in the default state, there's an oil controlled pin in there that keeps them locked, and then oil pressure pushes that out and it can advance or retard. Now the intakes, they advance and the exhausts retard. So how the heck is this intake camshaft retarded? You can't, is there a stop? So the next experiment I want to do is manually energize the VVT solenoid and see how far this camshaft can advance. It should be 50 degrees, as we see here on the scope. We did the same experiment on that Suzuki. So let's see, Suzuki bank 2 intake. So right here where we pulled the signal down from the VVT solenoid, so this is like default idle state, then we pulled it down, so this is full advance, and then back. So if we zoom in, this intake cam from our marker here from the sync notch advanced by about 50 degrees. So I want to do the same experiment on the Traverse, which was, let's see here, bank 2. So this is our problem. This transition should occur before the sync notch, not slightly after. With stretch chains on the Suzuki, it was right on. It was aligned with the sync notch, so we expect it to be 6 degrees before the sync notch, not like 3 degrees after the sync notch. So let's do that manual test, advance this thing, see how far it'll go. Here we are back on the truck, and by the way, yes, I of course checked the oil level. It looks clean and full, so that's not a concern. So let's warm it up and a hot engine, do the manual bypass test. Alright, we got the PICOSCOPE hooked up. Brand new little HP laptop here. Let's see how long this thing lasts. So here's the wire. It's connected to channel 4. That's our solenoid control. So when I touch this to ground, let's see what happens. Need to find a better ground. That solenoid sounds like it's clicking fine. That's for the bank 2 intake. So let's do a better ground connection and then run the car, advance the cam, retard the cam, see how many degrees it goes. Alright, so we have good signals. Let's touch the pin to ground and see what happens here. Do that one more time, and on. And off. Okay, let's shut it down. So let's just save this screen and see how many degrees the cam moved. So we're looking for this spot right here. Let's put in our rulers. So 720 and 0. Okay. So now zoom into right here and do our degree measurement. So it's at 46 degrees. So it advanced by 50 degrees. So that phaser has full range of motion. No issues there. So if you look at before activating the solenoid, that notch is not where it's supposed to be, but it's 50 degrees over. So it's supposed to be a little to the left of the sync notch, and it's a little to the right. So what do we tell the customer? Everything checks out, right? Except for this position of the bank 2 cam. Does the engine need to come apart? And if so, what are they looking for? What do they replace? Is it the phaser or the phaser to cam connection? Because there's no real way to put this phaser on wrong, because if you see here, it does have a locating pin. The whole thing's 10 degrees shifted. The cam is. So this reluctor wheel, for some reason, is 10 degrees off. I don't know how it's attached to the phaser. We could tear one apart, I guess, and look how it works. I don't know what could be causing this 10 degree retarded shift. So taking a close look at Rock Auto here, what I'm seeing is there are different part numbers for left and right intake phasers and only one for the exhaust. Uh-oh. What is the difference between the left and the right intake phasers? Well, let's see. Let's look at the back first. Knowing car manufacturers, they will try to do everything possible to make the parts identical except for whatever they need to change. So for example, the locator pin is aligned with the edge of this little cutout in the back of the pulley. Same for this one. It's a different angle. But let's look at the actual reluctor wheel. That's the only place it's labeled R or L. And let's pick a spot, for example, this lobe here. You can see a little protrusion sticking out. Versus the left one, it's rotated, but you can't see the protrusion right here. It's covered. So the left one, it looks like this reluctor wheel is pressed on in a slightly different position. I'm guessing about 10 degrees advanced with respect to the right one. See that? Now let's pick another one. So like right here where this date stamp is, you can see this is like halfway bisected on the right. On the left, where's the date stamp? So this is on the right. You can see the left one is like 10 degrees that way, and if it's clockwise, it's advanced. So my diagnosis here is that on bank 2, on the intake, he put on the wrong phaser. It's supposed to say L. I think when he takes that engine apart again, unfortunately, he's going to find that it's labeled R. I'm going to give the customer a call and tell him what we found. Now this is an in-depth diagnosis. Also interesting to note here that Rock Auto does not list both GM genuine phasers. They just list this one and this one, and for the 126.84.830, that is the right intake. And if we compare to our original, so in this orientation, you can definitely see how that lobe is retarded compared to this one. See, that one's covering that little round spot. That one is definitely like 10 degrees retarded. So that's my final call. That's the most likely thing that happened. Maybe he ordered 2 of these on Rock Auto, and then the one that says right, wait, that's the 830, and then 832, that would be our exhaust. Isn't that interesting? And the exhaust, remember, goes the other way. It retards instead of advances. But we do not have the left GM genuine listed here on Rock Auto. So very curious case study, and hope you enjoyed it. If there's any follow-up, I'll give you some bonus footage, but for now, see you next time. Bye-bye. So I just talked to the owner. Indeed, confirmed, he ordered the parts from Rock Auto. He got the GM genuine AC Delco units. He said he ordered 2 exhausts and 2 intakes. Well, the only intake listed on Rock Auto is the R, you know, the phaser for the right bank. The left is different. So he's gonna have to get a new phaser and install it, and cross your fingers everything should be good. But he was like, oh man, that's not what I wanted to hear. But at least we got to the root cause of the problem with minimal invasive surgery. All we needed to do is use the scope at the computer and look up some pictures of parts online. So hope you enjoyed that one. Pretty neat case study, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. So here's one of the original phasers. Let's set up the camera here and tear this thing apart. So first of all, when it's advancing, this thing is fixed to the camshaft. This is the timing chains driving it clockwise. So the camshaft has to advance, which means it goes counterclockwise, right? I'm sorry, it goes actually clockwise because it has to come before the chain. But you can see this is a spring-loaded device and it's locked in by some kind of pin. And the only way to take it apart is take these screws off. So let's do that. It's a 5 star bit. Hopefully this thing doesn't explode in my face. Okay, so this plate should come off with the screws. Okay, very interesting. There's a little spring here. Ooh, that's really neat. So these are the cavities which get filled with oil and can advance or retard the camshaft. Okay, so right now it's moving freely. Ooh, that's pretty neat. So to advance, we go this way. To retard, we go this way. Alright. So we'll take that guy off over here. So now there's that spring. Ah, okay. So you can see how far the lobes can move, and that would indeed advance the camshaft. But also it has a little bit of give here to go back. So what else can come apart here? Because the reluctor wheel is pressed onto this body, and that body is attached to these lobes. So I don't really see what else can keep this thing from coming apart here. Oh, now it advances all the way. So something fell out. That was this gizmo right here. So it was just the lobe. But this is the locking pin, it looks like. So that goes through with the spring. Okay, so that makes sense. So that spring basically keeps this plunger down, locking the lobes to this body. Okay. There you go, it's locked in now. If that comes out, then we're free to turn. And what's the rattling from? I mean, that's quite a bit of play there. Let's see if we can get that to come out again. There we go. So now basically unwinds itself. That's the return spring. So this thing is wound to here. That's the hole where that locking pin sits. So what could fail? Comment below.